Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, also known as Fix Your BS. I am Dr. Greg Persley, also known as Dr. G. And today I have an amazing guest. And once again, we're going to talk about 5 pillars: relationships, business or career, health, faith or belief, and finances. And we're going to try to give you the strategies, tips, and tricks in order to live your best life in all 5 of those pillars. Today, I have Renée Warren with me, who is an award-winning entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, author, and founder of We Wild Women, a platform that helps women-led businesses build confidence and authority, as well as gain industry recognition and the media exposure they deserve. She's also the host of the celebrated podcast Into the Wild, which is a show in the top 1.5% that features curated interviews with women entrepreneurs and provides actionable advice to women who are growing their own dream businesses. Renée firmly believes that the best advice comes from someone who has successfully done it before. I totally agree with that. Her approach to coaching comes from over 23 years of experience as an entrepreneur in running marketing and PR agencies and in becoming an unapologetic risk taker. Love that statement. When she's not coaching or podcasting, you can find Renée spending time with her family. In addition, she loves CrossFit, travel, and refining her drumming skills, which absolutely makes my heart pitter patter because I am a guitar player. Thank you, Renée, for being here. What an amazing intro. Thank you. I'm so excited to talk about this. You have so much advice that you can give from experience, and I love that is in your introduction, because so many people in today's world try to coach, and they have never done it before.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, by the way.
You're very
And
welcome.
such a gentle reminder how I need to update my bio.
Well, there you go. Let's update it. Go for it.
Yeah. No, but thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about these 5 pillars. So let's see what I can do.
Absolutely. So the people that watch this, one of the things I have them do when they get into my world is I have them rank the 5 pillars from 1 to 10. 10 being, hey, it's fantastic. 0 or 1 being like, oh, I've got a lot of work to do. And it just gives an idea of becoming aware of where you currently are. So then you can build a plan to get to number 10 of a vision of what that is in that pillar, so you know where you have a destination. So if you had to look at those 5, relationships or business or money or health or beliefs/faith, which one would you like to talk about the most? Which one do you think is like, man, that really is striking right with me right now?
Okay, this is great. Well, I have really cool story about my return to faith and being an atheist to a believer. So there's that kind of like radical reinvention piece, which has really been hot. And there's also the piece on relationships, because a lot of people ask my husband and I how we do it, because he is a successful, busy entrepreneur, as am I, and we have kids and a life. So really, it's like, what do you think they want to hear?
You know what? Honestly, so both of those things. So I get a lot of questions when people think about faith or belief, they think about religion. And when I'm talking about faith and belief, I'm talking about faith in your ability to do something greater than yourself into the future, faith in something greater than you. I don't take that into religion, because in my estimation, religion is more of like a man-made construct of faith, of belief, of an idea. And so when I talk about faith and belief, what I'm talking about is things like meditation to learn about yourself, know thyself, to figure out who you really are, what you really want, so you can live the highest purpose that you possibly can on this earth. And on the other side, absolutely, people get so fixated on believing that they either have to choose career or they have to choose family. And
let's double click on that.
Yeah, I love talking to people that have both of those playing at a high level.
So let's double click on faith for a second. And I'm an open book, and I'm trying to be non-judgmental. Here's the thing. I grew up in a Catholic household. My mom was super strict Catholic. She even went to boarding school for all of high school. So she was taught by a bunch of nuns. And in this era of her life, she tells me these stories about how they got one bath a week, and hers was like Tuesdays at 8 p.m. And if she missed her bath time, she wouldn't be able to have a bath for 2 weeks. And I thought, in my upbringing, the word faith and the meaning of faith was connected to religion. And religion to me was Catholicism and French Catholic Church, by the way, which all I can remember during Christmas time was how cold it was in those rooms. And so my understanding of God and Jesus and faith was through the Bible, through Catholicism. And that's when, like, so in Canada, these things happen. And I was kind of like stepping away from this, trying to understand myself. But in Canada, the last couple of years, there's really terrible things that happened in the Indigenous community, that they started to uncover thousands of unmarked graves of Indigenous kids that were stripped from their family to go to these special schools, that they were trying to whitewash, deculture these Indigenous people. Isn't this crazy?
Wow.
This
That is
happened
crazy.
in our lifetime. This isn't thousands of years ago. These schools were closed as late as like 1996 or something like that. I don't know. Anyways. And this was the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church did this. So I'm like, okay, that's not me. I don't subscribe to that. That is horrendous. So I'm stepping away from the church. And I think all religion is stupid now because of this. Again, I'm not judgmental. I believe there is a place for the church. There's a place for religion. It's beautiful. It's community when it's done well. I think it's what some people need. But I still associated faith in God to a religion. And in the past year, I've had the most ultimate transformation in my life. Medicine journeys, and I'm not saying like this is what people need to do, but for me, it's like I needed to go and do these things that were so far from who I identify as. It brought me back to understanding God and faith, and how I truly believe, and I don't want to go deep on this, but the meaning of life is to be love, is to give love and receive love. That's how I think the meaning of life is. And so how do we do a better job in our day-to-day to do that? And one thing is this idea, I actually just had this conversation with somebody the other day about giving, how we receive more when we give than the person receiving whatever it is you're giving. But when we say I give, it means that the thing we're giving was ours to begin with, that we possess the thing we're giving, which I don't believe we own anything. Nothing is ours. After we perish, someone else is going to live in this house. Someone else is going to wear these clothes. It's like I don't want to say replaceable, but we are here for a small period of time, and nothing is actually ours. And so what we are is we're through lines. We are hey, we have this thing that isn't mine, but I want to pass it through me to somebody else. That's the ultimate form of giving. So in coming back to faith, it's like, what is faith? Faith to me is believing in myself, but also believing that God has a journey for me to live, that God understands that I need to essentially complete my mission here.
And you know what? That's so, like, I love looking up definitions, because people misunderstand certain things based on the connections that they've made. Like in your case, for the longest time, faith meant religion, and that was the same thing. It was like combined. It was like, well, if you break those things out, faith is more of a complete trust or confidence in something. Well, you can have complete trust and confidence in yourself, and that that everything is working out for you. Like I have a complete trust and confidence in the fact that no matter what happens in my life, it is something that is for me, for my journey, for me to experience, for me to learn, whether it's good or bad or positive or negative. Because to me, this is going to sound bad, but to me, life inherently is meaningless. And we subscribe the meaning to the events that occur. And so if you have the power to put the meaning into a experience or an action, something that occurred in your life, then you have the power to reframe what that is, like what your life actually means and what's the purpose of it. And I think so many people project outward when they really just need to look inside and be like, what is happiness to me? What is joy to me? What would that feel like?
My friend
Like, do you
Claire
go?
Winslow says it's turning your edges inwards
Mm,
because we think these edges has to do with everything outside of us. The last place we look is inside.
hmm
So turn those edges inwards because it all starts here, everything. And yeah, I think everyone has a search for meaning or what's the meaning in this thing? And that happened to me. What's the meaning? It's like, it's by design. And my husband says this all the time. It's like, it is what it is. And I say, well, that's a condescending way to say that about something that happened to me. You're a jerk. So then when it's all said and done and you go through the motions and everyone's fine at the end of it, I'm like, you're right. It is what it is. It's like,
I think a lot of people take that statement as negative though. And I'm like, because when you hear somebody else say it, it sounds like you're not validating my feelings about this thing that's occurring. But what it really, to me, I think that's one of the most dangerous statements you can make because that person just accepts things the way they are and doesn't react to them. I mean, is that kind of how you see it as well? Or is
yeah,
it, yeah.
it's like control the controllable. There are things that, and women are notorious for this, is we worry so much. And I think there's part of it that's integrated into our survival, that we have to overthink things because we have to come up with plan A, B, C, D, E, F to Z. Because, hey, if we have plan D in place, if the first 3 plans fail, then at least we know what we're doing. Men compartmentalize their thoughts and their emotions. But anyways, all that to say, coming back to meaning, I think it's the most important thing. I think there is a time and place to say to somebody, it is what it is. Like if they just found out that their daughter was diagnosed with cancer, you don't be like, oh, is what it is.
Is what it is. Yeah.
But there are
I agree
certain
with that.
things in those moments that you can control, and there are a lot of things you can't. And so when we put our focus on the things we can't control, then we're searching for meaning, right? It's a vicious cycle of constantly trying to understand, why is this happening to me? What is the meaning in this? Or maybe it is what it is, right?
Mm. Yeah, and I totally agree with that too, because there is a timing and a place for certain things that isn't very empathetic when people are going through something. Um, you know, Something I had to learn, and you said it really eloquently, where women have a certain tendency and men have a certain tendency to analyze things in different ways, and they do. Women are more intuitive in general. They are more emotionally connected, which is why they generally have better memories. Men are more fix-it oriented. There's a problem, I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to just take whatever action to make sure that happens. They are more compartmentalized, which means if we're talking about this thing, we should probably just talk about that thing. Why are we doing this thing over here? I heard a comedian talking about that, where he talked about men put all of their thoughts into different boxes, and they're all compartmentalized into different boxes. And so they have to pull the box out and open the box and talk about that thing. And then if we change subjects, we have to put all that stuff back in the box, put the box away, and open up a new box. Whereas women have everything intertwined into like a ball of yarn. So if any of them touch individually, it's like this emotion brings about all these different things, that memories that they have. And there's so much good in both of those things. And there's so much that individually, needs to be worked on in both of those things. So when you have that, when you talk about relationships with your husband, you guys, have young kids, you guys are very successful. How does that work when you're doing all this stuff and very successful, but yet running a successful household and developing a relationship? Just saying that sounds like, whoa, because most people really don't have that. They have maybe one of those things.
Yeah. So here, the difference between, I think it's like the entrepreneurship mindset. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to have the mindset, because here's what we know about the entrepreneurial mindset is that there's going to be a lot of risk and there's failure and it's inevitable. We don't step into starting a business and be like, it's going to be a smooth sail the whole way to the end. We know it's a roller coaster ride, and there's tornadoes and wildfires in every turn, right? So I think that was the advantage already when we first met. My husband and I, his name is Dan. When we came together, we're both entrepreneurs. We were both solid believers in personal development. Those were values from the day one, like entrepreneurial mindset, personal development. And we both agreed personal development isn't a weekend course. It's a lifelong journey. Mm-hmm. It is like the school of life. And hey, we've had those ebbs and flows. Some years were not perfect. After having 2 babies in the same year, running my business, him having a startup acquired, raising around for another startup, it's not easy. And so how we kept it sane and together was understanding that the most important thing in everybody, like who's involved in our life, from our kids to our family to our community, was that him and I were working together on our relationship. And so we made that number one priority. But in recent years, like in the last 2 or 3 years, in that, the most important thing in having a great marriage was in working on ourselves. So it had, people think my marriage will only be successful if we work on the marriage. The problem is that people aren't working on themselves. They're not looking at their blind spots. They're not understanding where they could do better and be better. And so the moment that
oh, sorry, go ahead, Renee.
Well, just the moment that I was like, I need me to be better, because I want to be able to hang out with myself in my head and be okay with it. And I want everyone to want to do that too. But also, him and I are completely different human beings. He's like the extrovert, go out there, rah, rah, rah. I do that. Sometimes it's a struggle. But if I had it my way, I wouldn't leave my house. I just love being home. Understanding those ebbs and flows, but also understanding the differences between us is what makes for a great relationship. And then when we're good individually, we're good as a couple, then we can come together to be on the same page when it comes to parenting.
I think you said something there that is very important that I hope everybody heard, but working on yourself first and then working on the marriage, because a lot of times I believe people work on a marriage with a broken self-image and then they start projecting that out into the other person. Well, they never do this and they always do that. And they make these generalized harmful statements, which is what you just said. Take those points and turn them inwards and look inside and go, how can I become better? How can I become more loving? How can I love myself more? Yeah. Because ultimately, whatever's inside of you is what gets projected out.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you a quick story. My husband, when he's always had this dream of owning a McLaren as like his dream car. And it wasn't like 5 years ago, he bought one. So he got it. And I was just so embarrassed to be driving around small town East Coast Canada with this McLaren. It was the only one in the province. So we got all the eyeballs. And I hated that attention. And I hated it because it wasn't my car, but it was his. And I was so proud of it for him. And he was like, let's go on a drive. I'm like, I don't want to go in your car though. I didn't want that attention. So anyways, all this to say, I didn't feel like I deserved to be sitting in that seat because, I mean, really, we're married. So half of the car's mine too. Mm-hmm. But I didn't just feel like I deserved to be sitting in that seat. And then a now not friend, but a friend of mine, after, a few videos of him driving his McLaren and having fun with it, she messaged me and she's like, hey, how are you enjoying Dan with his new car? And I said, oh, I think it's amazing. Like, I'm so happy for him. He's been dreaming of this forever. And she said this thing to me next, which was the biggest insult. And I don't know. Okay. She said, with his success in his new car, are you worried that he might cheat on you? And I'm like, what? I'm like, why? I've never even thought about that. Why? Because successful, good looking dude that has a fancy car, yes, that it probably attracts a lot of women, but never, ever did I doubt that he doesn't just have eyes for me, because I love myself. I love me and I know he loves me. But if I was an insecure person, of course that would have been a thought, but it was never a thought.
Well, you also have security in yourself and in the marriage. I mean, with being communicating between each other and everything.
But you cannot have security in a marriage if you're a completely insecure person. Mm-hmm. Or even have like inklings of insecurity. Yes, we have insecurities on some things. Like I'm, money might be a thing that I'm most insecure about, but not me as a person. And so maybe if this would have happened 10 years prior to that, I was really insecure emotionally, physically, but I became mature. I worked on myself. I loved myself and I love myself now. Like, no way I could ever think that would happen.
So can you go into that for a second? You said about 10 years ago or a decade ago, something like that, you might have thought something like that because of insecurities that you had about yourself. So how did you develop that? When we talk about personal development, which then allows you to have the marriage development, which allows you to have some communication to where you can work on the things that most people fight about, which is raising children and money and sex and all the things that normally a marriage breaks down because of. how do you develop that self-confidence to where you're like, because my wife and I went through the same thing, and we now have that, like, I can go on a trip to Vegas and go to a conference and there's never even a thought. Same thing occurred. Her friends, aren't you kind of worried with him going to Vegas for 3 days? And she's like, I know why he's there. I know what he's doing. I ain't worried about that. He's there for this reason to get these results. He's not there for any other reason than that. And having that confidence is so rare because of the insecurities that people have. So how do you develop that?
Yeah, that's the thing too, is that so just say hypothetically, though this wasn't true, that I was super secure in myself, but he wasn't. So I mean, I can't speak to people who have cheated, and this is just an example, but sure. I believe that people who are enticed to do that are insecure, and they need that affirmation that they're actually significant. Mm-hmm. So it's like a significance thing, and so that's why it's important to, like, whatever it is you got to do to build that security, then do it. And for some people, it could be so drastic as like getting plastic surgery. If that's going to help, fine, to each their own. But I will say most of the time, it's like that, in turning those edges inwards. What is it that you got to do? And the biggest thing for me was just journaling, daily pages. So I did this program, this book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I did this a couple years ago. And essentially what she talks about is how, whether or not you believe in God, she says God, but it's like up for your definition of what that is that God's gift to us is that we are all artists, and it's up for us to discover what that is. So it doesn't mean going and painting on an easel. Artistry is like our own craft. So to be an artist is when you're doing the work that you don't even realize hours go by. So when you're in flow, right? So for me, I love writing pitches. I love doing like creative writing. I'm good at that. And that's why people hire me for PR, is because I'm really good at that. That's my artistry. But part of this book and the program is that you have to write 3 pages of unconscious stream of thought every morning. Sit down, open it, just start writing whatever comes up. And she has a rule that you're not supposed to go back and read these pages. Well, I'm a rule breaker. So I needed to go back and read these pages because I needed to find the patterns. I needed to find the patterns in my thought process that was either stopping me or helping me grow, become a better person. And so I would circle the things that kept coming up. It's like, okay, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. I'm going to share one with you right now that is still, I'm very vulnerable sharing this because this is still new to me, but I think it's really important, is that how alcoholism runs in my family. And it's not, like when I think about alcoholism, I think of people getting just, poop-faced every night and running out of money and being abusive. No, it shows up in ways that are so subtle for most people, and especially in our culture. And I didn't realize that it was becoming an issue for me. And my husband's been sober for 12 years now, and he talks openly about his issues with some family members that had issues too. Anyway, all this to say is that when I was going back through my daily pages, I kept seeing me writing down, I want to stop drinking. I hate this. I want to stop drinking. I don't like how I feel. I hate how this has such a control over me. It kept coming up over and over and over again. It would sit in my subconscious. And I'm like, Renee, do something about this. What do you have to do? And I was embarrassed to talk about it. So anyways, I just decided one day, that's the day. I'm done. Like, no more. This isn't me. I don't identify with that. I love a glass of wine, but I'm not. And that began my sober journey.
I love what you just said with that, though. And thank you for being so vulnerable about that. A lot of people have problems opening up and talking about things that, because they're afraid of being judged. They're insecure about the judgment that they might have. And I've been through that too, don't get me wrong. But I love what you said, though, about the subtlety of it, because everybody has this idea when you say alcoholism, like, well, that's not me, because they have a definition of what it is. But alcoholism could be an escape that you're trying to escape from your normal life on a Friday and Saturday night, and every Friday and Saturday, and then you have this recurring thing on Sunday. And I've had multiple guests on the show that a lot of men actually who've started groups that try to help people with that, to understand that it's not necessarily in your face all the time. It's the subtlety of, well, I got home and I poured myself a couple glasses of wine and went downstairs and watched my own TV show, and I was home alone. It's like, well, okay, well, why were you doing that? Is there a benefit of that? Does it match your lifestyle? Does it match who you believe you are? Does it do any good for you? Like, why did you actually do that? You know, what's the difference between doing that and pouring a glass of water? Is there a reason? And if you just have a moment of clarity to look inside and become aware and go, well, maybe that isn't something. Why am I doing that? Never thought that it was an issue before, but maybe it is. And I love the journaling too, because that is so true. Just writing down that stream of thought.
Patterning.
That's how I get people to write down their visions. I go, look, write down the vision of, if you could have anything of time, money, energy, just whatever, if none of that mattered, all the beliefs about what you're capable of or what you currently have, throw them all out the door. Open slate. What is your perfect day? Just write it down. Don't justify. Justifications don't belong here. Write it down. What does that say? Man, I would just love to, whatever. I'd love to travel and I'd love to.
Let's add something to this.
Yes, please.
And especially for women, I say this, a voice for women is write those things down, not based on what you think other people expect of you or want from you, but what you want at your core, what you want. And not to impress other people. The way I say it is, if you could live your life or live your week or a day without posting on social to prove that you've done something great, what would you do? Because a lot of people be like, oh, I don't even think I'd do this work because I can't post on social. Because now there's like, you're trying to affirm how great you are, affirm how smart you are, affirm how successful you are because I'm on social in my fancy car or something like that, which is fine if that's what you do, but don't do it to impress other people.
Yeah. I always say that the biggest travesty in life is when people settle for a life that other people think they should live.
Yeah.
Instead of living the life that they feel compelled to do. But most people don't even know what that is. Was there an aha moment that you had that you were like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is me. Oh, I'm headed in this.
Let's go back to like the sobriety journey is like the reason why I didn't do it initially, though I've been kicking my butt for 10 years with this, was I was afraid that people wouldn't invite me to places because I would become unfun. I'd be a boring person because I wasn't drinking. Turns out I'm actually more fun sober. And guess what? I feel great the next day and I remember everything. I was also afraid of insulting other people. If they were drinking and I wasn't, would they think that I think people that drink alcohol are shameful, which is not true at all. Mm-hmm. So there was that. And there's also like looking at my family and my upbringing is like, would my parents be insulted because I decided not to? And like, now would they be like, oh, well, can I drink around? Like, yeah, you guys can do whatever you want around me. I'm not even enticed. We had a Christmas party here. So it's a Monday today. We had a Christmas party here Saturday night. And there was like 80 people at our house and we had open bar and we had all this stuff, people drinking. And I was fine. I was totally fine because when I don't identify with that's what I do, not even who I am, but like I don't do that, then it was easy for me to say no.
It's the same thing when people talk about exercising. So I always say you have to become the person that's who they are. That's who you are as a human being. It is your beingness. It's like the persona that people know you as. Oh, he just doesn't miss exercise days. He exercises 3 days a week. That's just who he is. And it's funny because I had this moment with my kids where I would never go running because I had this idea that I hated running. But then I also knew that the quickest way for me to really get in shape was to run hills in my neighborhood. That's just what I knew. So I was like, well, how can I enjoy running? And I said, okay, I'm going to do these things. I stacked a bunch of things. I listened to my headphones. I was listening to a book on tape. I did it outside. I did it up hills in this certain area that was overlooking a lake. So it was beautiful. And and all of a sudden I enjoyed running. Like, what the heck? But I told my kids, I was like, look, 3 days a week, I'm going to be running. It's going to take an hour, 3 days a week. My kids were relatively, young at the time, but they were like, what? You're going to, whatever. It took 1 week of me doing that, of showing up, doing the thing I said I was going to do, 1 week. And all of a sudden my kids started to say, when are you taking your run so we can blah, blah, blah. So in 3 days of activity in 1 week, all of a sudden they had changed the persona of who they believed me to be. Oh, he's a runner and he's going to do this because not only did he announce it, but then he showed up and did it. And the same thing happens. I had it happen another time when I went to a bowling alley, and every time I went to this bowling alley, I used to play music there and stuff, but I'd go there and I would always drink this certain type of beer that they had, a draft beer. And I showed up one day and the lady said, "Oh, let me go get your beer." And I said, "No, I'm not. I don't need anything." And she was just dumbfounded, like, "Wait a minute, who are you?" Because she had this persona. So I always tell people there's 2 blocks. The first block is you. The second block is everyone externally you're going to have to overcome. How do you not only overcome yourself, become aware and then overcome yourself, but then overcome that second block of other people going, "Wait a minute, I thought I knew you. What happened?"
So here's what happened to me. I used to run a PR agency with 12 employees, and we had clients from all over the world, South Africa to San Diego. Mm-hmm. And that became my identity. And I also started that company the same year I had both my babies. And it was pretty crazy, 7 years.
That was a busy year.
Yes.
Kids 11 months apart. And
they're 11 months apart.
Oh my gosh.
So all of a sudden being a successful, and like they used to call me like girl boss and like power mom and all this stuff, and which I thought were compliments, really kind of got to me because I was like, oh no, you have no idea how I'm dying inside. I was sleep deprived. I was not healthy. I wasn't working out. I was eating like crap. But I'm a 6 foot tall woman. So I gained 5 or 10 pounds. You don't notice it. So I was skinny fat. I was not healthy. I was not healthy.
Skinny fat means not healthy. Yeah.
Right.
That's
so
awesome.
they're like, oh, people are just saying, oh, I want that. And I'm like, no, you don't. So anyways, I built this identity about growing this agency. Things were great. Then I burnt out. And it took me a year to figure out how to not only close my business, even though we were going through due diligence to be sold. I couldn't even handle an earn out of tears. I needed to shut it down. And I could have just done the thing to shut it down. But what took me forever to make the decision was, what are people going to think about me? They're going to think I'm a failure. They're not going to trust me again. All of a sudden, this power woman persona that I created, they're going to be like, nope, that's not her. So I was like so exhausted, finally shut her down, and then got into coaching for a few years, which I didn't like. And then I got back into PR. Long story short, I was at a Tony Robbins event this was only a year ago in Florida.
Was it a UPW event?
It was Date with Destiny.
Date with Destiny.
And the second Date with Destiny was when it just cracked me open. And I was like, I got to get back into PR. But again, I stopped myself because I'm like, people are going to think that I just don't know what I want, because the PR to no PR to back into PR, the identity, the cycle. And I was like, well, you know what, Renee, you just got to do it. Just put it out there. So I posted my first post, second post, third post about doing PR again. Guess what happened? Everybody said, Renee, I see you shining. You're back into your purpose. I see you coming alive again. This is so inspiring. No one said, oh, you're doing this again. When are you going to quit? No, I inspired more people. It's not the outcome I thought, because I just thought doom and gloom. And
Isn't it funny how you suffer from your thoughts of what you think might happen? And then generally, if you really think about it, that thing that you thought would happen doesn't actually occur.
No.
Isn't that interesting?
Doesn't happen. So the moment I made the decision to get back into PR, I remember coming home after like day 3 or 4 of Date with Destiny. These are days are like 16-hour long days. And it's 2:00 in the morning. And I'm sitting like just jazzed up from the day, trying to tire myself because we got to go to bed, check email. And I open up my email and there's 2 people that want to hire me to do PR. And I go, I didn't post anything. I made the decision. And somehow God's like, okay, pew, here's 2 people.
It's so interesting how that works, though. Go ahead. You said because. Go ahead.
No, it's when you make the decision based on what you want to do, not what is expected of you, then God gives you these gifts. And it's up to you to execute on them. Like, the work didn't get any easier. In fact, it got a lot harder. But here's the thing, is I love the work. That yes, there were days and still are that are just a grind, but they're few and far between now because it's the work that I love to do.
I love that. I love that, because a grind is a grind. If you really don't like it, then it's painful. But a grind that when you are doing something you love, it's almost like bring it on. There's a different feeling with it. Yeah. I had an extremely similar experience in 2018 when I made the decision that I was going to take responsibility for my life and say, you know what? I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I am going to take control and I'm going to make things happen. And when I made that decision, I was granted the opportunity to go to this event, but I had to pay for my ticket. And I was like, I don't have money to pay for that. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but I know I'm going. Like I made that decision. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, the universe lined up. God sent me a gift. And it was in the form of a line of credit that I had never seen before. It was a 0% 12-month line of credit from Discover Card. And I should probably get them as a sponsor because I do tell this story sometimes. But anyway, the point is that I was like, I don't know where this came from, but I was like, this is obviously, to me, it was like a sign that I'm moving in the right direction. But it was that decision, that emotional connection to, this is what I have to do. I have to, like, I just know it in my soul. Did you feel that same way in that moment?
Oh, yeah. So in that moment, it was like, I just felt like someone took all of this like shrink wrap off of me. And I was able to just like let loose. And also the give no F's attitude. It's like, I have to stop caring what other people think on so many levels, because here's what happens is you end up doing the people that need you a disservice by not showing up. And so there's people that we all need each other on some level. And if you're not doing the thing that is your, like, the gift from God and your artistry to show up, you're doing somebody a disservice.
I love the way you put that, because it is not about you. Yeah, you found out your purpose, but it's really you're missing out on the opportunity to give to someone else and benefit their life by not showing up. And I just love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, to be the through line of that inspiration for other people. And when you talk about inspiring other people, it doesn't have to be 100 or 1,000 or millions of people. It can just be one, because you think about like finite. It's like you affect one person and then they tell one other person. Now that's two people, and then they tell two people, and it's this mesh that keeps going. And that's a great cycle. That's ultimately what we need to be doing.
I watched a post one time of Gary Vee. Gary Vee was he was at his event that he ran, and somebody came up and he said, will you do a live with me? And he goes, absolutely. Well, he does a live and gives it a few seconds or whatever. And there were 3 people on the live, and the guy was kind of embarrassed. He's like, oh, we got 3 people. And he goes, you serve those 3 people. Serve them like no one's ever served them before. You be there for those people because they showed up for you when you went live. And if you serve those 3 people, that 3 will turn to 30, and that 30 will turn to 300, and that 300 will turn to 3,000. He goes, but people get caught up in the numbers because they see, oh, I got 1 million and 10 million views and 10 million followers and whatever. He's like, that's not real for the most part. Yeah, there's people that have that, but the average individual, if they just focused on serving their community better than anyone else has served them, then the result will come. And I don't just mean a financial result. The result of the purpose, the joy, the gratitude of serving those people comes.
Yep. And then talk about like money too in all of this is the more, and this is really like a feminine approach to money, but the more that we are in line with the work we're supposed to do and serve others, the money comes. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take fancy spreadsheets or sales projections. It just shows up, and then you figure it out.
There comes back to the faith and belief. Makes a full circle back to that. Yeah.
So in my journey to come to this version of Renée right now is one of the little nuggets that helped too was reading Mel Robbins' book, the High Five Habit, where essentially she tells you to go like give yourself high five in the mirror. I was like, man, this is silly. Wow. I'm like, yeah, high five, Renée. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this version my own. Instead of doing the high five, I'm going to show up to the mirror and I'm going to look at the 18-year-old version of Renée, and I'm going to tell her all the stuff that's going to happen. And I'm also going to tell her all the good that's going to come of it. So every day I had a story. Every day I'd be like, you got this, Renée. I'd look in the mirror, in the eyes, like, Renée, you got this, because I was struggling. And then
Mm-hmm.
after that moment, I would look outside and I would look up at the sky and I would raise my hands and I'm like, God, I'm here. I'm here to receive. What do I got to do next? Give me something. And every day it was like a little morsel of something, of something. And let me tell you, I didn't know where the money was going to come from, but then it just started showing up. And I'm like, okay, cool. There's this thing that's happening. Now I got to figure this out. Let's make this more formal. It's business. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I just put my faith in God to show me the way, but also know that I have to do the work and that work's on me. And I did it and I'm still doing it.
That's awesome. I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. I love that. I think a lot of people, we hear a lot of people mention The Secret to me and in my group, in my, whatever, social media, and they talk about The Secret. Oh, you're talking about manifesting and The Secret. I'm like, well, manifestation is having a vision, knowing what you want, having faith and belief that it is yours and you know that deep in your soul, and then taking action toward it. We live in a very busy and noisy world, especially nowadays with technology. What do you do to disconnect from that, to hear that calling, that morsel, that guidance? What do you do to disconnect from that, just to be able to download whatever's coming from God or the universe to say, oh, that's it. That's what I need to do. That's who I need to connect with. That's the next step, whatever.
So there's a couple things, and we talked about this earlier too, is nature. Nature is a gift. But meditation. But here's my form of meditation. People think I'm crazy every single time I say this, is CrossFit is my meditation. Playing drums is my meditation. And here's why. Because it's one single focus. Most of the time it's like focus on your breath. I get it. When you're doing CrossFit, you're only counting your reps and you're in sheer pain and you're not thinking about anything else. When you're playing the drums, and I'm pointing over here because my drum set's right there, is I'm focused on getting the beat, playing that song. And that's it. There's nothing, like a bomb could be going off and I'd be like, I don't even know what's happening. And so and to all this to say is you have to break the pattern. So you can't just like go to work, sit there, do the work, and then go and make dinner for your family and go to bed. You have to break the pattern mentally and physically. Giving yourself capacity to just be bored is the best gift. If you go for a hike, you're like, it's so boring. Yeah, people listen to music or podcasts. I actually think you should go without a device at all. Sit with your thoughts. And because that's when the best ideas come. The best ideas come when you're running or when you're in the shower. It's because you're not doing anything else and your brain has the capacity to think and come up with ideas. But also know, like, ideas are a dime a dozen. And so you have to write down all your ideas, but also know there's only certain things you can take action on. Only certain things actually make sense for you to do. So I did a 2-day intensive mastermind with some of the world's most brilliant minds in marketing. And they had all these ideas of things to grow your business. And I was writing them down. When I got home, I was like, what are the things my team and I can actually implement? Like, these things look good, but what do we have the capacity for? And so I talked to my assistant, Morgan. I'm like, here's the idea. We're going to keep it simple. Our goal for 2024 is to grow the email list. And how we're doing it is we're doing this monthly thing. That's it. And then the other thing to do with our podcast, we're going to tweak this. And that is it. We're not getting fancy, but we're going to be consistent with a few things we know converts to grow our email list. She goes, I can get behind that. No problem. So create an SOP. And so now what we do with our monthly master classes is it's a template. It's just a new subject every month. And we run paid ads to it. Boom, boom, boom. And so we don't need to complicate things. Sorry?
The KISS principle. The KISS principle. Yeah.
And we think that in order to achieve a certain level of success or to get out of a rut or whatever it is we have to do a lot of things. And the truth is you have to do few things consistently because the success comes over time. You can't lose 50 pounds overnight. You can dream it. But the sustainable way to losing weight means a complete lifestyle change. And that's just maybe one thing at a time. Maybe it's just in a little bit of extra water this week. And maybe next week is you're doing, instead of calling it exercise, by the way, I wrote this down. The word exercise scares the crap out of people. Call it movement. Movement. That's a movement. 45 minutes of daily movement. Go for a walk. My kids, they don't know this, but they're getting the, is it not the Wii? What's the other Nintendo Switch for Christmas? But they have this game where you can dance on the Switch and you get you get points for how consistent you are with the movements. Well, they have YouTube recordings of these things. And so instead of actually playing the game, you're watching the YouTube, but they like to dance and do the movements. And they always ask me to jump in. Remember, I run, I hike, I do CrossFit, I'm fairly fit. I did one song with them and I was sweating out of breath. And I said, this is a workout. And they don't even know they're gaming workouts. And it was so much fun, but I was sweating and out of breath. So that is daily movement. So think of like where you need your improvement in your 5 things: relationship, money, health, faith. What are the little things you can do to improve everything? So Tony Robbins says, if you want to improve your business 10% in a year, all you got to do is create 10 different departments or look at your 10 different departments and improve everything by 1%.
That's it.
1% improvement. So if you want to improve your, according to your 5, what do you call them? 5 values?
Pillars is what we call them.
Pillars,
Yeah,
your
pillars.
5 pillars. If you want to improve your 5 pillars by 5% this month, guess what, guys? A 1% improvement in each one of them. That's it. So what does that mean in relationships? That means here's a perfect example of where you can improve a relationship immediately today. Takeoffs and landings. Have you heard of that concept before?
I have, but you can go ahead and go into it. I'm sure there's people who are going to be listening to this that haven't.
Women love this, guys. Secret. Takeoff and landings is that when you're going to leave for the day or for the moment and you're leaving the house or you're going to do something that's going to occupy you, is you tell your significant other you're leaving. Usually it's followed by a kiss and a hug. My husband does this. Hey, I'm leaving for my hike with the boys. Cool. Kiss and hug. And when he comes home, the first thing he does comes to me. It's a landing. I'm home, babe. Kiss and a hug. It takes 2 seconds and it has a significant impact on your relationship. Sometimes it's hard to do. You're like crabby or you're in a rush. Take the second to do it. That is an immediate 1% improvement in relationships. Okay, let's talk about business too. Well, I mean, I gave you an example of something I can do. So sitting in that room with these brilliant minds, I will say the theme for 2024 is this. 2 words: easy and different. That's it. Everyone wants to make their business easier, yet different. Now, these are the OGs of the marketing space. They showed up and they were the ones that created. They were the trailblazers for like marketing funnels and all this stuff. Over the time, they've created these really bulky engines and now they're stripping it away because they want to make their businesses easier. An example of health, I told you, just change the word exercise to movement. Now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, let's just move if it's more than you usually do. So you think about like those 5 pillars, what is one simple thing you can change today that make a sustainable commitment for the rest of your life?
That is so amazing and so true. One of the biggest mistakes I made in my business and my career was that I was in a hurry. I wanted to get successful now. And it's incremental over time. And I know this 100%. And I tell people all the time, you're 25 years old and you're not successful. I'm like, dude, it takes time. Just slowly and steadily invest in yourself and learn how to become the person you want to become. And over time, and success will just find you. You don't have to chase it. It just comes to you.
But
and
also finding success though, because success is like fancy cars and big houses. And a lot of people don't even want that. They don't like,
or they think they want it based on what somebody else tells them is success.
Right, like
normally people think success, they think in terms of things and money. And I'm like, that's not success.
Success to me is freedom. Freedom is, yes, having the financial freedom to be able to get access to really good healthcare if that's important, 100%. But it's also like the freedom to make my day. So it's like, I don't want to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That never appealed to me. I'm more of a creative mind, so I can't be bound by rigid schedules. This is why working corporate never worked for me. But freedom's like, yeah, we live in a beautiful house and we have nice cars and we travel, but even if that was taken away from me, I would still feel free because I live in a incredible country that is free. And I have my health and my kids' health and my husband's health. So, yeah, I mean, what a beautiful conversation. I love this. And your pillars are so strong and so powerful. And we tend to complicate things when we look at this. We think, oh, relationship, here's all the list of things I need to do to improve my relationship. It's like, we all have that. No one's perfect. And just choose the one or two things that you can work on that are easy for you, but break that pattern.
That is awesome. Yeah, that is such, it's such simple advice, but yet so impactful and so powerful if people take action on that. And I tell people all the time, nothing changes until you take new actions, until you actually become and start to change. I could talk to you all day. I love having these conversations, especially with people that just what I call they get it. They just like, oh, they've come to these understandings, and you give such great information. Everybody needs to, that's listening to this, can go to your Instagram, which is Renée_Warren, and they can click on the link that we have. I do love the bio that you have there. The holy shit that this works PR expert. I love that. That's fantastic. You can also see the car that you're talking about, because I know you had a photo shoot done with your husband's car recently, and that was on your Instagram. I saw that not too long ago, which was really, really cool. Really cool photo shoot. Or you can go to wewildwomen.com, wewildwomen.com. Look, these are the things that you have said today are principles of life, and they're going to be around forever. And so people need to understand that it doesn't take one massive change. It takes small, steady steps, incremental changes over time. And I would give everyone the assignment to, for just 1 week, wake up and write down at least one, but you can do 3 pages of unconscious stream of thought of just what you're thinking, what is good, what is bad, what's throwing through your mind, so you can get an idea of what your subconscious mind is actually throwing out there. So everybody should do that. Renée, this has been an absolute pleasure. Anything you'd like to add to kind of close this out, that, maybe one thing of advice that you'd like to give to everybody to finish this episode off?
Yeah. So I have about 225 episodes on my podcast, most of which are interviews. The one question I ask at the end of every episode to my guests, which are mostly women, is, when I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you? The number one word, the most common word that comes up, is unapologetic. It's like we always have to say sorry for being ourselves. I want our world and our society to get to a place where we don't have to apologize for the things that we like to do and for our success, that we're just going to do it. But for today, the word and what I want to leave everybody with is to be completely unapologetic.
Wow. That is so awesome. Renée, absolute pleasure. I wish you the best of luck with your husband and the kids, and just keep being you, keep growing. And, you're doing great things, and I love it.
And
everybody,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Everybody, this has been another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, where we talk about the 5 pillars of life: relationships, business, health, faith or belief, and finances or money. It takes one small change over time, consistency. I call it the 3 C's: consistent, constant, and correct actions over time to make major changes in your life. Make that 1 degree change today. That's what I learned from this episode. I am here to help you and improve your life one step at a time through guests and through strategies, tips, and tricks, and things that make sense for you. So all I can say is take action, and I will be here to support you in any way that I can. And please keep showing up to these episodes and share this out so you can help somebody else. Thanks for being here to hang out with me and Renée, and be a part of the Fix Your BS community. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.